Bonjour à toutes et à tous.
Good morning to all of you. Thanks a lot for being here with us this morning in person, but there are some people following us on the platforms. According to Mr. Lorenzi, there are 2 million people who have logged on to attend the rencontre des économiques des so sports as a tool designed to beef up social cohesion. Patrick Geoffron, an economist, is with us. He's also a judo instructor, so he's involved in sports, but he analyzes all these sports-related economic matters. We have Amélie Oudéa-Castéra. She's the chairwoman of the Olympic National Committee for France, former minister. We will be able to revisit the enthusiasm of the 2024 Olympic Games. Renaud Muselier, the president of the Provence-Alpes-Côte d'Azur Regional Council. I shouldn't say PACA. And we'll be talking about the next Olympic Games. Mariano Tamendi, chairwoman of the World Football Summit. She will explain to us what it's all about, and she will be delving into transparency in sport, how sports can be more inclusive, the role of women and the place of disabled people. We would like the place of disabled people to improve. And we have also Frédéric Duponchel, founding partner of Accuracy, a judo instructor in Sens. He will tell us if a sport is a profitable business. Without further ado, I will hand over to Patrice Geoffron, who will deliver some introductory comments, and then you will have the floor. Thank you, Jean-Paul. Good morning to all of you. You've understood that if you look at the situation, we have a panel of high-level experts, judo, judoka, a karateka, and with sports, we have to consider the social dimension of sport. To my left, I've got 2 people who are involved, who were involved in the 2024 Olympic Games, and they will be involved in the 2030 Olympic Games. Remember, the enthusiasm, the legacy, the investments. Investments were colossal in the Seine-Saint-Denis department, but we need to take a step back because we need to look at the legacy. A lot of enthusiasm about the Olympic Games for the disabled people and the sport. And there were lots of comments about the dedicated funding for high-level sportsmen and women. And there was a kind of hangover after the Olympic Games, but we need to take a step back from that. Today, this is the start of the Tour de France, so we have to say that social cohesion can be nurtured with those big events. It's a massive economic sector. I looked at the data. 3% of GDP. This is what sports accounts for. It is on a par with the hotel business, the catering business, hospitality business, and sport has increased quite a lot economically. So sports is a full-fledged economic sector regarding inclusion and diversity. Sports cannot sort out all of the problems, so mass sports is conducive to a mass economy. And there's something that is quite difficult to measure from an economic viewpoint. Volunteers. The 125th anniversary of the 1901 Act. It's an extraordinary act. People think that this law is great and pivotal. So sports is important. I'm a professor of economics. I'm also a judo professor, but I've mentioned the 3%. So volunteers play a key role, even though they are not accounted for in the economics. But there are other observations that I would like to make, more worrying elements that I need to share with you. In terms of access to sports, it is not homogeneous, and in France you have different regions, and according to the Council of Regions, there are some areas where access to sport is difficult, from the Vosges to the Eastern Pyrenees, and access to sports infrastructures is difficult, but this is something that we will be revisiting when we talk about disabled people and how disabled people can get access to sport. But public finance is limited. In X, given the weather forecast and the heat wave, sports has to adapt itself. And President, you need to think about the weather conditions in the run-up to the 2030 Olympic Games. Adaptation of infrastructures is key. Of course, I don't want to end my introduction on a negative note. So, sports facilities and amenity will have to be managed and revisited. Amélie Oudéa-Castéra will tell us what was done. So they did a lot, they invested a lot so that the River Seine could be used for bathing purposes. So there are some environmental issues to take into account. So this is what I wanted to share with you. So Jean-Paul, do you practice sports? Yes. Maybe I don't practice sports as much as you do, so I'm a beginner. It's not too late, to start. But sports is good for the economy, and if you don't practice sports, is bad for the economy because there are some health-related problems and issues that could be very costly. Thank you, Patrice. Amélie Oudéa-Castéra, 2 years after the 2024 Olympic Games. What's left? What is the legacy? Lots of things. I'm delighted to be with you and with my friend, so to be able to find your way through without some landmarks. Is sports a genuine tool for social cohesion? I would say yes, but sports can do even better if we continue to invest. Remember what we experienced in Paris during the Olympic Games. And with the 2030 Olympic Games, we will continue to get this momentum with sports in summer 2024 during the competitions. Remember this football match against Sweden. And I can tell you that this team has been affected by grace, and I think that tonight at 11 p.m. you will be in front of your TV set, because if you look at sports, it's an exceptional show. It's an excellent show with shared joy. Have a look at what happened in 2025. Sports means 37% of the best audience ratings. So 20 million French people will attend lots of sports events, volleyball, handball, tennis, football, and it's a field of excellence. This is something that I want to highlight. When you look at the Olympic Games that were successful, the Olympic Games in Cortina in winter. The French teams managed to post many successes, and in terms of medals won, France is the first biggest country after the United States and China. So it's an exceptional field of excellence for French sports, and the economic impact is great. We can organize other events. So in 27-8, hockey events. In 2031, we'll get the championships of basketball, and then this has an impact on the Île-de-France region, 10 million euros. So this has an impact on the economy. Allow me to talk about the success of the French teams. Have a look at the match tonight. Lots of different players from different walks of life. And with sports, you can climb the career ladder, and you have people of different origins. I'm not going to talk about the champions. I would like to talk about daily sports. I mean, sports for everybody, sports for us. And there's a figure that has struck me. In 1.5 years, there has been a progress of 40% when it comes to running and training, and running sports. We want to belong to a community, and this is something that is quite powerful. And there was an advocacy for the municipal elections, and we see that French people were in favor of sports clubs. It's a kind of tool of cohesion between the generations, because the 180,000 sports clubs are key venues. You have different people from different walks of life, from different generations, and they will practice sports. And if you look at these sports clubs, there is a lot of inclusion of people who are disabled, because some investments were made, something that you've mentioned, the Paralympics, and of course we need to continue on that note. And the last element that I would like to highlight, the sports clubs are an unbelievable place, a powerful engine when it comes to social inclusion of part of our youth. Some youths are they haven't any bearings, they have no landmarks, because in sports clubs you have different people, people from different walks of life. You have leaders who can reach out, they can offer a summer job, an internship, So I'm very proud of this approach that has expanded with a partnership with the MEDEF, with France Travail, because in 2030 we want to include 100,000 young people through sports. All in all, it's an unbelievable tool for inner happiness. It's a tool. Sports is a tool that enables us to cement our values. And sports radiates through the world, highlighting French excellence. Lots of political and economic uncertainties, but I know that sports will provide a lot of joy, and I think that sports will continue to be a source of pride. Thank you. So the economists have noticed the creation of this new index, the inner happiness, the gross inner happiness, or inner gross happiness index. So we will measure that in the years to come. You've mentioned Renaud Muselier, in a world without landmarks and bearings. Can you tell us if sports is a compass? I will repeat what my friend minister said, but with different words. So sports for people makes it possible for people to develop themselves. When you're young, when you practice sports, you make some efforts. You can listen to a teacher, you can understand rules, you can face another team individually, collectively, and then what is important is what happens after the match. You have to be humble. We are all different, from the very first divisions to the highest divisions. And sports is a unifying factor. You can become a sportsman, you have partners, adversaries, rivals. You want to be better and you want to move to another dimension. So this has to do with the republic. We know the rules in sports, and the rules change over time, so that's quite positive. And of course, it's a matter of mutual respect, self-respect, because you have to make some efforts, and you need to respect the others, because you have to comply with rules, and there is an empire to make sure that the rules are respected. So I'm a sports practitioner, but I'm also a political leader. So sports boils down to health. When you practice sports, when you are angry, you can vent your anger. With sports, you want to compete with others. When you want to reach healthy, natural areas, you do that through sports. So sports is a matter of mindset. We have 5 million inhabitants and 1 million members in sports clubs. That's great. How can we make sure that the world of sports, based on efforts, rules, very well organized, how sports can impact the daily lives of people in a society without bearings, without landmarks? So how do we do that as political leaders? So we've made a choice with Mr. Lieberman, with Mr. de Cancelon. We decided to support the federations, the Olympic Games movement. But the principle was simple at the start. We said that we need to support all the international events. We want to capture them. We want to make sure that we organize international events. And we are using these events in order to highlight a specific sports. When I was the first deputy at the mayorship of Marseille, but I was a minister, we went to Australia and we organized the World Cup of Rugby in Australia. Then we greeted the team of New Zealand, and rugby has made headway. We have great teams, and we have the president of Provence Rugby, who has developed the rugby sport. He is an entrepreneur. He has an economic company, but he has a societal and economic role to play. So we are forging partnerships with big teams. And at the end of the day, we managed to get the World Cup of Rugby. We injected 10 million euros into the clubs, and we fetched the best teams, the finalists, and they played in Toulon. In Toulon, we have a big club, and in Toulon, we have greater facilities that were co-funded in a significant fashion. But it's a matter of personal and human investment in order to get the Rugby World Cup to have 4 big teams in the south. I mean, if you look at the economic proceeds, 400 million euros. I mean, for the clubs in the region, 10 million. So it's huge. I mean, the proceeds are huge, are colossal. So we were with them, and we told them the showers, I mean, you have to change them. For example, the volunteers, I mean, they are driving in an old van, so that's not possible. So we will refurbish the showers. We will give you new cars, new vans to ferry the volunteers. So what is important is to develop our regions. Regarding the Olympic Games 2024, I was the deputy of the Marseille mayor. Nobody thought that we would get the sailing competition. People from the West told us that we couldn't organize a sailing competition. So at a very early age, I mean, I was part of the 2024 Olympic game. I like the sports, and we managed to win the day. And the IOC, they came and saw us. Of course, some complex criteria had to be complied with, but with those IOC criteria, you can be very demanding for all people, the Europeans, the Asians, the Africans, the Americans. So you have to comply with the instructions for use, and if you don't comply with instructions for use, you will be priced out. I think that you could spend hours about that. Yes, but allow me to talk about the Olympic Games of 2030. I will be talking about regional development. So 4 minutes. So we managed to get the Olympic Games. I mean, 10 million euros for sailing. We purchased boats. So we granted some scholarships and grants. We decided to refurbish the sports centers. We managed to win some medals, 200 million in terms of economic proceeds, direct economic proceeds. So the initial investment was not high. So I will be talking about the Winter Games. It's the same rationale. So we never got the Winter Olympic Games, but we never made that request. So we decided to go for it. We were in the first line. We met with the President of the Republic, with Laurent Wauquiez, with Mr. Estrosi, with Marianne Belli, and we said we are able to organize the 2030 Olympic Games because in the south we said that we cannot fend for ourselves, and let's say that we need to cooperate with others. We were competing against the Swedes. The Swiss have 3 minutes left. This is a countdown. No, these are the remaining minutes. 33 minutes. 33 minutes for the group. Okay, right. So I've got 3 minutes. Oh, these are the minutes, the way they are accounted for in the south. That's why. So we shared two sides, and we managed to achieve that objective, and the economic proceeds are huge. So 4 billion euros, 2 for the south, 2 for the north, but basically we end up in a situation whereby the development of the region of the south, we have Hautes-Alpes, Alpes-de-Haute-Provence, and Alpes-Maritimes departments. So 60% of the regions are alpine regions. So when it comes to organizing the 2030 Olympic Games, it's important to take into account global warming. What's going to happen in 2050? We need to use the 2030 Olympic Games in order to come up with a new policy in terms of ecological matters. Don't worry, you'll be able to speak. So 32 minutes left, but for all the speakers. Thank you. So is the glass half full or glass half empty? So we focused on the assets of the Alps. We want to focus on what is nice. Mariano Tamandi, you will maybe have another approach. Sorry, but I will speak English.
Important, and I would like to have more communication skills. So, well, not that I want to criticize, obviously. I'm in the realm of football. Football is the biggest sport in the world. It goes without saying that sports is a great economic vector and everything. But precisely, my counterparts here on the table were speaking about the importance of practicing sports. And I want you to think that these days we are all well aware that we have to practice sports. But then if you look at sports in a professional way, you don't really see all this social inclusion present there, okay? So I just want to make the point of certain aspects that are that have to be improved in the course of years. First one is women. I want to congratulate Amélie for being the president of the Olympian Committee. Let me tell you that in Spain, we are far away from having a lady on that position, so congratulations to the French. In Spain, for you to know, out of 67 sports federations, we only have one president, female president. You see, this is terrible. And this is more terrible if you think about the taxpayers paying so much money on this policy to encourage women getting there. So obviously they are not doing the right job. Now, if we go to the professional football, out of 42 clubs in first and second division in Spain, we only have 2 female presidents, okay? And only 10% of the boardrooms are occupied by women. So you can see that when FIFA says football unites the world, and now I'm coming to the second point, that's not really true. All these great superpowers that football has are not being used for the good. You see now we are on a World Cup, and by the way, congratulations to the French team, but I hope that the Spanish one will get on your way. Hopefully, we'll see. If you see now, this is the first World Cup that is being taken place in 3 different countries, Mexico, United States, and Canada. And yet, what is FIFA doing to really get those cultures closer? Nothing. FIFA talks a lot about legacy, but you know, it seems to me that all these things are more ticking the box than real action. And last but not least, another big absent in sports is disabled people, disability. Except for the Paralympian Games that take place every 4 years, on a daily basis, access to sports infrastructure is not easy and is not being taken seriously. Disabled people represent 16% of the society according to the World Health Organization, and yet they don't have an easy ride in sports at all. They cannot enjoy football, for example, the way non-disabled people can. And also in terms of employment, they are totally absent, even more than us ladies are. So this is something that I want to leave it thinking, because we have a long way to go. And I stick to my 5 minutes, I hope.
Congratulations. Bon. Merci. Merci pour la clarté de votre propos.
Thank you for the clarity of your words and for sticking to the rules, because as we said, in sports there are rules. Frédéric Duponchel, do companies find that sports is profitable? Well, you asked me the question at the beginning. And my answer is I think we're all aligned on this point. If we measure the profitability with cohesion social as an indicator, sports is very profitable. We all agree upon that. I wanted to illustrate this with 2 or 3 examples from my sports discipline, judo, that I teach in a small club in Lyon, a city of 30,000 inhabitants. When all of the practitioners are in their kimonos on the tatamis, the judo mats, and Mr. Mussolini knows this with karate. It's extraordinary. We're all together, whatever the origins, whatever the ages, social conditions, everybody comes together to practice this sport with very defined rules and a moral code which is specific to judo and which brings an additional dimension to this common practice. Another example is the extraordinary life of Luca Ketse, a judoka. Luca left Georgia in 2008 during the war. He was 7 or 8 years old. And he reached France in 2012 after a long journey. He didn't speak a word of French. He was very good at judo. He was in a small club where he was doing very well. And after all of this, Luca won 3 Olympic medals for France. 1 in Tokyo, the under-60 silver, a bronze medal in Paris, and a gold medal for the team competition in Paris. And today he speaks perfect French. So this is an illustration of social cohesion. Now, if we look at the question of companies, my conviction is that, and the minister mentioned this, we must multiply interactions between the triangle sports, youth, and companies. And companies can do a lot in this field. I will illustrate it with 1 or 2 examples. The consultancy practice that I manage in Cohesion is the sponsor of the French seated volley team. We started with the Olympic Games in Paris, and it's a wonderful example of handy sport with a lot of emotion around the sport. But we've also, for more than 20 years, been a partner of sports in the city. This is an association that promotes insertion and professional insertion through sports. We began as a simple sponsor, and we just gave funding. And the Cohesion team very quickly played with the young people of sports in the city. They played paddle and indoor football. And now there's another aspect where we take the CVs, we teach them how to behave and how to succeed in an interview. And among these young people, some have the project to start up their own companies. And so companies within this triangle, sports youth companies, can have a role that far exceeds that of financial contribution, but can act as a catalyzer and build bridges between young people and their future life, including their professional life. So to end, another example, once again related to my sport, judo, a tremendous program launched under the first 5-year mandate of President Macron, which is called the 1,000 Dojo program. So this consists in opening dojos in priority areas in cities or in vulnerable remote areas. And we don't build anything, but we take premises that are vacant and we renovate them with a dojo and a place that is open for a long time during the day where you can read, a library where kids can do their homework, a quiet place, a place where you can chat with others, have a coffee. And this gives hope to many places. This is a program that is undertaken with the Federation, of course subsidized by the state and local subsidies, and a lot with companies. In particular, Société Générale Bank and Renault are partners, and also at a local level. The next step is a project that could be called the Dojos of Success. So to turn this in a project where we reward young people who's shown regularity, abnegation, who's followed the moral code, respect, politeness, who's respected his opponents, who's fallen and gotten back up again. And on the CV, we put a label that gives them a boost to enter to find a job. Jean-Paul, if you would allow. I feel that I must point out that Eric Berton, who is the president of Aix-Marseille University, who is a partner of the Rencontre d'Aix and very involved in this organization, before he presided this university, within the university created a sports excellence center, which was involved in Paris 2024. But I won't go into the details, but basically the idea is to place science in the service of technology, biomechanics, and sports performance. And my little finger says that this probably contributed to the success of the Olympic Games, and I would like to underline this. Co-funded. So earlier on, my first question was, what remains of the 2024 Olympic Games? So I've understood your message, Amélie Oudéa-Castéra, but beyond the success of running, trail, is the will to do sports early on for young children, to have exercise daily at school for all audiences, and the will to make sports more accessible, including in priority neighborhoods of the city, which are lacking in infrastructures. Do you consider that this objective has been achieved? Not sufficiently yet. I think that what we must recall is the impact on the practice of sports of the Olympic Games has been tremendous. Today we have a record number of license holders in France, in particular among women. Generally, people signed up in all of our sports federation is 17 million French people. It's the equivalent to the population of the Netherlands. So that weighs in the balance, including in a presidential election. But they're not candidates. A tremendous sporting impact, an impact on our infrastructure. We talked about reconquering biodiversity stages. We could talk about the 60 stations that have been renovated, all of the infrastructures developed, and very significant projects. When you talked about the commitment of the university, and that's a measure that I'm very proud of in the legacy of the Games, is that we created the very first diploma in France that is specifically dedicated to high-level athletes with ESSEC, Sciences Po, and Centrale Supélec, who brought together their know-how to allow this diploma to come to life. And today, the world champion of kayak, who's in this year There are 40 tremendous students who have an academic course and sporting course of excellence. And for me, this should be the embryon of a French Stanford. There's no reason why our elite athletes should go abroad when they also have an academic project. That's the bricks of the legacy. But we've not had enough time to communicate on this and to carry it forwards. Today, we know that there is a problem of sedentary, of physical inactivity and dependence on the screens, which creates problems of mental health among young people. It's a major problem. So we've developed reforms. President Macron very quickly impulsed the deployment of 30 minutes of daily physical activity as soon as we proposed this legacy measure to him, which is important and which is enrolled in more than 80% of our primary schools. There was the implementation of 2 additional hours of sports for middle schools, where the results are more mixed because this called upon we need to call upon other players to do this. But today we cannot become a big sporting nation if our kids continue to leave school at 5, 6, or even 7 o'clock in the evening. And this is why the Olympic Committee, and Hervé knows this, produced within the framework of our convention on children, says that if we want to be serious from a health perspective, education, and the development of our children, they must be able to leave school earlier. There must be more space given over to activities outside school. We have more than 80,000 clubs. There are some tremendous associations that host our children and allow a better organization of all of the periods of time at school and also activities outside of school, be it sporting activities or cultural activities. Our youth has talents and they must have the ability to express them wholly. And the question is not just for you. If we free up this time, well, are the structures there to help them? Yes, absolutely. And look, we have 2 judo teachers, etc. No, today we have 40,000 very well-trained educators. There is an excellence in the French training model that the whole world envies us. There are local authorities that invest heavily in sports, but also coming back to the question of modernising the equipment. There was the plan mentioned earlier on by Frédéric on the 1,000 dojos that fits more broadly into a construction that was carried with President Macron of 10,000 local equipments in France. We must continue to invest in our infrastructures, but we have everything to become a tremendous sporting nation. And I hope that our Olympic Games of 2030 will allow us to maintain this frame and to allow us to continue to move ahead. Renaud Muselier, you said that in your region. Yes, we have put 30 million euros into organizing the games. In the legacy, we have the naval base, the leisure boating base in Marseille, which has been entirely renovated. All of the rivers and lakes, etc., and above all the coast where there are water activities have been renovated. We bought different boats. And parallel to this, we renovated all of our training centres, and we developed a system approved by the regional and national Olympic committees with our champions from the south. Because, you know, they have a problem of money also for training, so they have specific grants so that they can have a chance of winning a medal and to have the financial means that are very tricky to find. Whatever, all of those who were in the running and selected and might have won a medal. So it's a very concrete legacy. Yes, so you talked about champions. Earlier on you said the region, there are a lot of license holders in France, but the point underlined by Amélie, the priority neighborhoods of the cities, the big gaps between the underprivileged neighborhoods and elsewhere. Well, I already have a trouble, managing my jurisdiction. I can't deal with those of others. So I work either with federations or leagues or clubs, depending on the funding we decide to direct there, so that they, with their local authorities, each have their own plan. The policy of the city has a certain number of state tools that are not made available to me. But for myself, in my political action with our elected representatives, we vote specific budgets to help people, run that last 100 meters. So there's a problem of, the locker rooms, the boat, the truck. It's very concrete problems. They don't have any money. So how do we help these athletes so that their kids can train? And if they don't train, they can't go to school either. Or if they've come out of school, what means they have to continue their sports. So we do this with professionals who guarantee that last meter. On the question of inequalities and different neighborhoods, once again, I'm going to come briefly back to judo. But there is one dimension that we forget. We think a lot about high-level athletes, of course, the Olympic Games and the athletes we want to train so that they can grow up and be medal-winning athletes. But there are young people on the mat who are the athletes, but we don't talk about the life in the sports club. And it's very important as a tool for social cohesion because each club, I think there are practically 200,000 sports clubs in France, and each club is a real micro-republic with its president, its treasurer, its bureau, the volunteers who take the kids to the competitions on Sunday. And all of this gives rise to a very bubbly social life, a very beneficial. And sports today is the very first sector for volunteer involvement in our country, the first. We have 3.5 million sports volunteers. And in terms of attractiveness and the problem of young people, I am very thankful that today 44% of young people from between 16 and 25 years of age want to work in the field of sports. It's the second sector after tech and AI. It is a social phenomenon. And we talked about inclusion. I'm very proud that part of the money left over from Paris 2024, so there are some profits, are being reinvested in the service of discovery for children from underprivileged families in our mountains for 2030. And so we're launching a call for projects, and we're working with sports in the city. A representative is there, the president is there, with other associations, with federations, so that children from underprivileged families who've never seen the mountain, and yet we do have a lot of mountains in France, well, so that they can go and stay in the mountains, discover everything about the mountains, and there's, of course, an educational and sporting aspect to this. So in terms of education, sports cohesion, a very important point is the arrival of artificial intelligence, which means that the academic qualities, which are often not very equal, are gradually being phased out to the benefit of human qualities. And these human qualities are acquired above all through sports and easily, around games, around rules, etc. And I think this is a very important dimension to take into account. With the massive arrival of artificial intelligence, the basic qualities that we acquire in sports will become increasingly important. I would like to react to that from another angle. The economic policy depends on me. All of the companies are here. When in the Olympic Games in Paris, in the Winter Games, we have about 4 million euros of budget investment. So that gives rise to public markets for 4 years. That gives work to local companies, and 70% of the markets are won by local companies. And for these markets, 30% are for the social and solidarity economy. It's also a way of helping the economy as a whole by including the very local aspect and different chambers of commerce and craftsmen, etc., because we assign a charter so that in what we validate, all of the investments are made in the territory, 70% in the territory, and 30% of it is for the social and solidarity economy. That is inclusion. We have 10 or so minutes left. The floor is yours now, for those of you who have come to see us and who no doubt wish to react. So you have the possibility of asking questions now. I would ask you to raise your hand, introduce yourself, and ask the question. The first one is always the most difficult, but the gentleman is volunteering here. Don't move. We will bring the microphone to you. Just to tell us who you are and what your question is. I'm Stéphane Delamour. I'm the president of the MEDEF Sud Provence-Alpes-Côte d'Azur. Before a question, just allow me a single term. Thank you to everybody for the words that you've said here. It was a real pleasure and a shared pleasure. I'm going to be brief. But it's very important to underline that sports is a school for life. And it's the way in which we can raise our children, be they in very easy conditions or very complicated conditions. There are far more children who are in complicated conditions than those who are easy, and who allow us to create a society. And the second element is the parallel between sports and companies. They are both life courses that allow us to feed robustness, resilience, and excellence. And the more we will manage to work on a four-cornered project with the elected representatives and the members of the training, the sports representatives, corporate representatives, and the representatives of the associative world, the more we will win together. So what I would like us to do is to amplify the agreements that we've signed, in particular with the MEDEF, because I'm one of the regional representatives, and I really would like us to scale these up, because it's the opportunity to provide these young people with support. Thank you for your answer. If anybody has... No, it was a contribution, and we're very happy to have had this. But, you know, this is not a place for people to make statements, but we're here to ask questions. If you have any questions, then please do take advantage. Introduce yourself briefly and please ask a question. Marie Duflo. I'm from the region. I've done a lot of sports in my life. I'm delighted to hear everything that you've been saying. A lot of assets have been promoted, and above all, the benefits of sports for young people. But I haven't really heard a lot, Mr. Musée, about sports for older people. I think there's a tremendous impact and that could help our social security systems in terms of prevention, rather than using doctors, physiotherapists, which cost the state a lot of money. Couldn't we help? So in older Peters, I'm among these older people because I'm from the age of 40. Thank you for your question. Who wishes to answer? No, yes, you are so right. Progress for health and sports are too slow. We talked about intergenerational cohesion, and there are sports health locations. There are 500 which allow people who suffer from a chronic disease to engage in sporting activities, because sports can help them, or it can prevent dependency, it can prevent a degradation of physical health with women who have the premises of osteoporosis, for example. All of this is measured by the High Authority for Health, and we know that in France, €1 invested in sports represents 13 euros saved for society as a whole, thanks to all of its positive externalities for education, health, prevention of delinquency. We know that in health, when people resume physical activity about 30 minutes per day in the sports of their choice, it can just be walking, there is a reduction of the recurrence of cancers. There is a prevention of cardiovascular disease. There is the ability to reduce the consumption of psychotropes, and there is helps us to fight against obesity. Today, 17% of our youth, to take the other end of the spectrum, that have problems of obesity. It costs us 50 billion euros per year. In the necessary revolution of prevention, we must reactivate our investment, so we're not in passive consumption of a lack of physical activity and sedentary, but promote this activity in order to entirely re-engineer our systems. Progress is slow, but it's starting. The first measures have been taken on the cancer prevention, but we need to pick up the pace. All of our medical services today show the importance of this. Thank you. Madam, could you please stand up and introduce yourself? Christine Ansbar. I'm correspondent of Financial Africa, one of the big French-speaking African medias and also Pan-African. In Dakar, in October, we will be holding the Youth Olympic Games. It's the very first of their kind. And you said that in the state, and the minister, and in the region, it's very beneficial. Can it be exported? How could you possibly intervene in these Youth Olympic Games? The Olympic Committee will play a very important role because among its key missions, there is the support of the Olympic delegation for the Games, but also these Youth Games. I am so happy of this first in November in Dakar. It will be tremendous. You know, they've really had the time to deliver very inspiring games at the very time when the Olympic Committee is rethinking the future of these youth games. For us in France, we said that they were not superfluous because they really allow us to prepare our youth for future Olympic Games. It's a tool of solidarity, of reputation for these countries. I think that it's a wonderful symbol that this big event will be held in Africa, and we will be very proud to head a big delegation. We still have a few minutes left, so you have the floor, and then there's a young person in the first row. Sir, please ask your question. Please speak into the microphone. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is for Mr. Muselier, who I became acquainted with in the events in the Joliet a few years ago. I was born in Marseille and I've migrated to Aix-en-Provence. And what is your question? My question is very simple. A lot of people would like to drive, but they're not yet 20. They're authorized to drive, but I see that there are no road markings. I thought you were going to ask us a question on motorsports. Please ask your question. The question is coming. In Aix-en-Provence, there's a McDonald's. We only have 2 minutes left. We don't have any clear road markings. In the Green Cross Code, it's written that the speed bumps should be clearly marked out, and they aren't. So we would like you to help us. We need quality painting for the road markings. Well, I don't want to censor you, but, you know, the link with sports is very difficult. So yes, we'll make sure that the road markings are done. It's very difficult to navigate through in a world without landmarks. Territorial Association for Sporting Events recently issued a report to the Minister of Sports. I wanted to know, and Mrs. Emilia Oudia Castera, as the president of the French Olympic National Committee, what do you think about the possibility that France might organize in the near future, or might be a candidate for the organization of sports events such as the World Cup in 2038? Well, we have a whole series of major international sports events in our road towards the middle of the 2030s, which is extraordinary. And of course, this means a lot. There's access to markets. There's the acceleration of investments to allow the development of sports endeavors. And it is a real opportunity, and it is a French point of excellence. We've seen this in different competitions. First of all, I would like to reiterate the organization of big events is not automatic pilot. There have also been very serious accidents, very bad difficulties. Let's remember the Champions League. It's not a good memory for anybody, but when you work hard, when you organize, when you work as a team, when you know how to anticipate things and do this with a lot of professionalism, it gives a capacity to make our country known, which is tremendous. Look at the tourist impact on the country. Look at the way in which the Paris Games transformed the image of our country abroad. It was France is back. There was this boldness, this reputation, this cultural dimension, and that's what it must all be. And 10 seconds to conclude. 2030, will it be as good as 2034? In Paris, they love 2024, and they will love the French Alps in 2030. What a fantastic conclusion.